No need for a long introduction. We're going to have two presentations. They're all based on the TRB papers or the posters that we submitted last year. And they're all about IFIT and machine variability. They are really connected to each other. We separated them into two presentations. And one of them is primarily related to one of the ICT studies, machine variability, and the other one is Ed Eduardo Barber's thesis.
He's probably watching.
Is he watching?
Probably.
Okay, excellent. So without further ado, let's have Zehui start the presentations, but we can, in the middle, Egemen will switch. I will switch to Egemen, but in the middle we can have the questions, so no need to wait all the way until the end of the presentation. We can have the questions when Zehui is done, all right?
Yeah. So, good afternoon. It's my great honor to present this Kent seminar series. And today I'm going to present an IDA-sponsored project, evaluation of IFIT results and machine variability using mineral test track mixtures. The principal investigator for this project is Professor Hassan Ozer, and other group members include Professor Iman Akadi, former visiting scholar Eduardo Barber, master student Egemen Okte, and former research engineer Xinhua. First, I'll give a brief introduction of the Illinois Flexibility Index test. It was developed in 2015 as part of the ICST study. It's a modified semicircular bending test conducted at normal room temperature at 25 degrees C. And it uses LVDT control load rate at 50 millimeter per minute. And by adding another index called slope at inflection point, flexibility index can be calculated using this equation. So there are two research objectives for this study. The first one is we want to evaluate the impact of various loading system and fixture configurations on the IFIT results. Or if we want to go into more details, we want to compare the spool-driven and the hydraulic loading system and the different loading support systems. And the second objective of this study is we want to assess differences in test results for mixtures obtained from mineral testing facility. We have three different machines from three different manufacturers included in this study. The first one was manufactured by Instrotech, and the second one was manufactured by TestQuip, and the third one was manufactured by Interneking. I'll give more details in this slide. The first one is a machine manufactured by Interneking. It has a hydraulic loading system and a spring support roller. And the second picture shows the machine manufactured by Instrotech. It has a groove sport roller and school driving loading system. The third picture and the fourth picture, they are basically the same machine. They share the same loading system. And the only difference is they have different supporting system. Picture 3 have a bearing roller supporting system, and picture 4 has a spring roller supporting system. Then I'll introduce mixes used in this study. Here are 8 mixes included in this study. 6 of them are from mineral testing facility, and the other 2 are from IDOT and a previous project at here ICT. These 8 mixtures have RAP content ranging from 0 to 20%, and RAS content ranging from 0% to 5%. And they use different binder types, PG64-22, PG58-34, PG64-34, and SBS PG70-22. And they have different NMAS, 4.775 and 12.5 and 19 millimeter. We believe that the results from these 8 mixtures can give us good representative to the mixtures we use in field. And this figure shows the gradations of these 8 mixtures. As you can see, mix 1 to mix 8, they have pretty similar gradation. And these mixtures are all from mineral testing facility. And the orange curve shown here, it shows the N50 lab mix from the previous study here. And the blue curve shows the gradation for I-dot base mixture. Here I'm going to show you guys the testing procedure for this study. It's pretty straightforward. The first one is we want to have the pilot study determine the optimal compaction weight to reach the target air void for the specimen, 7 plus minus 0.5%. And then we prepare the specimens according to the I-dot specification. And then we assign 6 to 8 specimens on each machine for each mix. And then I'll move to the results part for this project. First, I want to show you guys the displacement time curve and the load time curve. The figure on your left-hand side is the displacement time curve from mean road C16, and the figure on the right-hand side is the load time curve from mean road C16 mixture. What we can conclude from these two figures is that there are some differences in the displacement application, and also comparable load displacement curves can be obtained. And also, these two figures are the displacement time curve and the load time curve from N50 lab mix. What we conclude from these two figures is that displacement rates were more consistent for mixes with lower strengths. And as you guys know, the loading rate for Illinois flexibility index test was a very important part. And we want them to be in the range from 49 to 51 millimeter per minute. And we want to assess this for different machines. This figure shows the displacement rate for all the machines from all the mixture testing. As you can see, we can conclude that average displacement rates were within the range, only with some outliers. For instance, the Instrotech spring rotor from mean roads test C6, C18 mix, and the Instrotech spring rotor from I-dot mix test. Ooh, sorry. Now I'll move to the typical results part from the mixture testing. The first one is the N50 lab sand mix test. We assign 8 specimens to each machine, and they all give average flexibility index at around 20-21. And the slope for all of this, the average slope from all of these 4 machines are around 1.5. And the fracture energy, the average fracture energy are all around 3,000. And this figure shows the I-dot base course mixture results. 7 specimens were assigned to each machine, and they all gave average flexibility index at around 4, and the slope around 4, and fracture energy around 1,700. They are all comparable. Here, this figure shows a comparison of mixes, and we can conclude that when we decrease the N mass or increase the binder content and quality and reduce the ABR in the asphalt mixture, we always get a higher flexibility index. Now I'll move to the statistical analysis part for this project. 2 statistical analysis methods were implemented in this project. The first one is the one-way ANOVA. We want to compare the means of several groups, and the null hypothesis of this one-way ANOVA test is the equal group means. And 5% significance level was implemented in this one-way ANOVA test. And Tukey test, which I also refer to t-test, can help us to determine how different the group means are. Before we conduct the statistical test, we want to do some data cleaning things. And the first step is to determine the outliners and reduce the data set. The rule we use here is the interquartile range rule. And for instance, this is a box plot for mix 16. And as you can see, here is the outliner from test script spring rotor testing results, and we will clean this outliner first before we conducting the statistical analysis. And then we want to see what are the optimum number of replicates. When we are doing the iFit test, we do not want to go very high, very large number of replicates because that needs a lot of man work. But we cannot go to very limited number of replicates because that cannot give you statistically stable results. So from here, we can conclude that minimum 6 to 8 replicates are recommended since the mean of Fi and standard deviation become convergence after 6 replicates. So here we try some data reduction techniques. The first method is we want to remove the highest and the lowest flexibility index in the data set. As you can see, it's very clear that the COV of flexibility index will decrease after we remove the highest and the lowest flexibility index data points. But the problem here is you'll have some difference between the original data set and the reduced data set. And this difference can be up to 6%. And we tried the second method, which is we randomly select 4 specimens from the data set. And as you can see, the COV of flexibility index drop dramatically after you sometimes randomly select the 4 specimens. But the difference between the original data set and the reduced data set becomes larger, can be up to 16%. So we conclude that COV may improve with data reduction, but due to changes in mean Fi, none of the data reduction technique was recommended. So here we run the t-test, and this table shows the Tukey test. We have the pairwise comparison between different machines and pair the p-values. The average flexibility index results are statistically equal for all combinations of machine-to-machine comparison for each asphalt concrete mixture. Here is the last slide for today's presentation. We come to the conclusions part. And the first conclusion we draw from this project is the mixtures had similar flexibility index values from all machines considered in this study, or no significant differences between screw-driven or hydraulic machines, or between different supporting systems, bearing roller or bearing roller. And the second conclusion is that no consistent trend in the mean values of results, with one machine yielding consistently higher or lower Fi values, which means the changes are random. And so the third conclusion is that variability in the material governs the variability in the results, not the machines. And the last conclusion we can draw is the flexibility index increases with decreasing N mass, increasing binder content, binder modification, and reduction in the content of recycled materials. And that's all of my presentation today, and I'll now move to Egemen Okte. Thank you.
We can have the questions now. We'll wait until the end. Any questions for Zehui? Very clear. Good. Huh? Very excited to hear from Egemen.
Right, okay. Did he leave? Hi, everybody. Now I will continue with the second part of this presentation. So to start with, like, I didn't do this study. This is all done by something else that, someone else that you all know. Like, he's in California right now, so I'm just like presenting it for him, and I believe that he's watching. So I hope I don't make a lot of big mistakes. But so, like, the reason that we have this is that first we look at the machines and see if the different machines have an effect on this test. The second part is to see if a single machine will have some sort of contribution to the test results, right? So we want to come up with a procedure to find out how much a single machine will actually change the test results, and come up with a correction factor and see if that correction factor will help us in this in these tests. So, like, before I begin, the part that we want to look at is this first part, the part until we see or the start of the fracture. So we don't really care about what happens like after the whole fracture, but we care about what happens before then, and how much the machine compliance will play a part, which I will tell you what it is in just 1 second. So when you have a specimen like this and you look at the different sources of displacement, right? The first one we have is this bending motion. The second one we have is some local displacements at these supports. The third one will be the local displacement at this pin. And the fourth, and the one that we would like to find, is how much the machine components themselves are actually displacing, right? So if you want to look here, we know we would like to find out this term right here. And for this term, we sort of made an assumption that this term is proportional to a machine compliance factor. And of course, it's proportional to the load that we apply. And we need to test if this is true first, but this is the sort of assumption that we were making here. So moving forward now, to get rid of the bending motion, like one thing we can do is to bring these supports as close as possible, which is what we did in these tests. And to get rid of the displacements at the supports, you can use a stiff material. But the big problem with that is if you use a very stiff material, you might actually not be able to get some test results, because you don't get a lot of displacement out of it, and you might damage the machine as well. So, what we did is we used a standard material, which I will tell you what it is. We conducted a finite element model. We conducted the tests on that standard material, and then we determined the machine compliance. So I'll just go step by step what these are. First, the standard material that we test is called Dalaran. That has an elastic modulus between 1.5 and 3.5 gigapascals. So this is the material and the configuration that we do the tests. The first thing that we need to do when you have this material is to make sure that this material behaves in the way that you would like. You want it to be linear. So like you can see in this graph and this test results that this is indeed what we found. So this is a material that we can actually use. The second part is, of course, the machines. These are the same machines that he actually presented. I just did not put their manufacturer names, but they are the same machines. The only real difference that you can see here is coming from this different distance between the supports. So this is something that we would like to keep in mind for now, because I'll just go back for 1 second and we'll look at this again. So we have the total displacements, which is coming from the test results. And we would like to determine the machine compliance, and we would like to find out these remaining terms, which we conducted a finite element model to find what those terms are. So we have a finite element model here. We simulated these tests for all 4 different machines, and the reason why we have 4 different machines, the only difference is this support distance. But like other than that, it's pretty much the same model, right? So I'll simulate these tests, and we see how much displacement we get with these 4 different machines. And if you look at here, the machines are pretty comparable when you look at the finite element model, which sort of tells you that this bending was not playing a big factor when you place the support so close to each other. But this is just the first part. Still, we need to take the standard material and actually test it, right? And when you test it on this 4 machines, the real data does not look as nice as the finite element model, right? So in the machine A, you see a lot of differences within the same standard material. In machine B, it's a lot better, but we have a slight problem here where it's not completely behaves in the way that we want. The C and D are pretty good and repeatable, but the I just want to point out that the point of this is not to compare the different machines, which is what he did. We just want to look at each machine and come up with a compliance factor that will work for that individual machine. So going forward, the way you find this coefficient is you have these test results, and you have the displacements that are coming from the finite element model. If you divide this by the load that you have applied, you can actually find this machine compliance, right? And this is exactly what we did. For the standard material that we have tested, we have 2 displacements coming from the finite element model. One is from the 1.5 gigapascal, and the second one is 3.5. And we know what the test results gave, which is here. And then using these 3, we can actually come up with a range of machine compliance that can be scaled to different testing materials, because we don't really care about these numbers. We just really care about the range, if that makes sense to you, because we can scale it when we want. So the final thing we did is to actually, once we have these factors, we tested some mix, and we sort of applied these factors to the tests that we did. So as I told you in the very beginning here, we have this part that we just care about, and the machine compliance, the corrections we made, will just shift this load displacement curve. So we are not actually changing the slope, but we are changing the fracture energy, and thus we're changing the flexibility index. So this is the material that we have tested. It's also a material that we have tested in the machine comparison study. So I'm not going to go into the details because it's just a single mix this time. And so now, if you will look at the results here, we have the uncorrected data, and you can correct this for the machine compliance for the range that we have provided, and actually see the percent differences. So it doesn't seem big, but we still need to go forward and see if it actually makes a difference or not. The same thing we can do with the flexibility index. We have the data from the test, then we do these corrections and find out the percent differences, right? But we need to make sure that, so what does this tell us, right? We had, how many specimens we have? 8 specimens. So you sort of look at the p-values here right now, right? So we take the p-value like significance as 0.05. So if the significance is bigger than 0.05, you're sort of saying that these data are coming from the same sample set. So this is sort of what you see for the fracture like energy. You see a like increase in the p-value, which is telling you that you're increasing the confidence that your samples are coming from the same data set. But when you look at the p-value of the flexibility index, you see a slight decrease, which is strange, but still it's bigger than 0.05, 0.005. So it's still showing you that they're coming from the same set. So it is telling you that you haven't really changed the test results with these machine compliance factors. The last thing we do is the two keys test. So in here, if these are the same letters, it tells you that they're coming from the same set. So in here, we don't really care about what this single column is, but we want to compare the different columns when we like apply these corrections. And we don't really see a like significant like difference. So like this is still y, 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 y. So this is sort of, again, telling us that the machine compliance is not playing a big role in these test results. So finally, to like conclude, we came up with a machine compliance factor that we can sort of like apply to the test and find the corrected results. And well, even though we came up with this method and like you can actually sort of like apply this in your tests, we found out that the machine compliance does not really change the results of the tests. So like when you like take this like together with the machine comparison, it tells you something good about this test, that it's, you know, like can be done with this machine or with that machine. So that was sort of the conclusion that we like arrived at. So this is the like end of the presentation. If you have any questions, we can have them now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nice presentation. I have a question.
Yes.
So again, what was the significant level for your determination?
This one?
The significant level you were utilizing for this test for flexibility index. How much was that?
This one?
This like this.
Right.
It was 5%.
Yes.
So that means.
I think it was like 1.005 was selected as.
So you are.
So it's 0.5%.
0.5%.
If it's bigger than 0.05, 0.5%.
Okay. The other question is, when you are having the range between the specimen, why you are having the range 1.5 gigapascal to 3.5 gigapascal? I assume you are going to use the same modulus for this specimen. Why you use this range?
That is a pretty good question that I had in my mind as well. And we have two problems with that. One, it was apparently like really hard to find the like modulus of this like specific material. So like this is one, but the like main reason that you have this range is because in the like the specimens that you like do your testing, you usually have just not a single stiffness. You usually have a range. So what we like wanted to see is like within this range, how would the machine compliance would change? So like let's assume a very high case and assume a very low case. How would that high case or this like low case will change the results? And the final answer to that is it really doesn't change it that much. So it tells you something good. But if we did it with a single value, then you could say, but what happens if my stiffness is here, or what happens if my stiffness is here? So this sort of like covers the whole range, if that makes sense to you.
Any other questions? Egemen or Zehui?